Welcome to the SPF Idea Boost and to SPF Virtual. For those of you just joining us, I'd like to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the ancestral territory of the Blackfoot people, comprising the Siksika, Kainai, and the Piikani nations, as well as Treaty 7 signatories, the Tsuut'ina Nation, the Nakota Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations. This land is also the home of Métis Nation Region 3. I'm Melanie Windle, the Executive Director of the Sustainable Entertainment Society, and we are thrilled to be launching into a delightful Idea Boost series. We have an incredible lineup, and I'd like to thank our lead partners, Real Green and Creative BC, Green Spark Group, Telefilm Canada, CBC Radio Canada, Ontario Green Screen, and the Directors Guild of Canada National. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, we'll have polls. We'll be publishing them throughout the session, and every time you participate, you will be entered to win a limited edition SPF24 t-shirt. Secondly, closed captions and languages. If you're viewing from Swapcard and would like to access closed captions in a language other than English, please join the Zoom webinar by clicking the link to your left under the event description. Once inside the webinar, you'll have the option via the lower menu bar for captions to be simultaneously translated into French or other languages. Also, don't forget to tag us on social media using hashtag SPF24 and hashtag Sustainable Production Forum. Our partners make this event possible, so please give them some love by visiting the partner and Green Marketplace vendor profiles. We are so excited to hear from these champions, thinkers, suppliers, and innovators. The stage is there. Joining us from our global community are, first up, Roman Russo, Green Consultant, Green Toolkit, and Dr. Elisabeth Ignasiak, Sustainability Consultant, Freelance, followed by José Luis Gutiérrez, Sustainable Production Consultant, Motoca Specific Gear Inc., and then Carmen Thompson, an Indigenous filmmaker with Moon Productions, followed by, and lastly, Peter Bauman, Business Development Manager, the Americas, Anton Bauer, Sustainable Power. So take it away, Roman and Dr. Elisabeth Ignasiak.
I should work. You guys hear me? Sorry for messing this up. We are Green Toolkit, software provider from Germany, going globally with our approach. Today, we're going to share some insights on our approach that aligns with international standards, like the ISO 14067 and the GHG protocol. And we're going to explain how it can bring tangible benefits to your production process. ISO 14067 it's basically an international standard that provides guidelines for calculating and reporting the carbon footprint of products. It helps organizations measure and reduce greenhouse gas emissions associated with their products to improve environmental impact. After obtaining the ISO standard, that's the certificate you get. It's a long process, or it was a long process for us as Green Toolkit to go through it. Quick insight on how that looks and what we measure. The declared unit right now is 1 minute screening time, and we're working on per shooting day right now to get the ISO certification on this. And Elisabeth's gonna tell you a little bit about the data quality we get while using our system.
Yes, so what we are doing is measuring basically a product carbon footprint, and following the ISO standard allows us to analyze the carbon emissions in different departments, as you can see on the screen, and different life cycle stages. And if you go to the next slide, you will see that we can also do this per minute, which means that we can compare different movies per genre. And the advantage is, if you go again to the next slide, is that now we can basically analyze where the emissions are the strongest and therefore take really effective measures. Also, again, in the next slide, where we want to tackle carbon emissions. And finally, the standard requires a reporting. So we're reporting on system boundaries, data quality, uncertainties, emission factors, and so on. And you can have all of this in a Green Toolkit with a push of a button.
So after all this, we got an insight on the carbon footprint calculated according to the GHG protocol. The carbon corporate footprint is basically the next step after production, because behind every production there's a company, and right now we only get data quality, I think, on one hand, but we leave out the enterprise that actually pays for all of this. So Green Toolkit also offers the possibility to go through the carbon footprint, life cycle assessments, as well as scopes. And Elisabeth is gonna go
Yes.
through that.
So the greenhouse gas protocol is made for businesses. So this is now the corporate carbon footprint, for example, of a film studio. So in scope 1, we have the direct emissions. In scope 2, we have indirect emissions through purchased energy. And then scope 3 is the indirect emissions, which for most businesses is 90 to 80% of their actual emissions. And again, all of this, if you put in your emissions data in the Green Toolkit, you can automatically assign them to the different scopes and get your analysis of the data.
What we figured so far by using it, I mean, the calculator inside the Green Toolkit is just a small part, but it helped making productions comparable. In, I think, a year and a half, we had like more than 600 productions that are able to be comparable by now using this international standard. We are European based, but it's an internationally recognized standard, as well as it offers, again, automated calculation according to the GHG protocol, especially for Europe. Elisabeth can say something about the...
So the good thing is that a lot of standards and regulations are based on the GHG protocol. And in Europe, particularly the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, is very current and many businesses are doing it. So this is very useful.
Exactly. The benefit you get out by calculating the carbon footprint of your production using ISO 14067 as well as the GHG protocol, of course, brings significant benefits to production. It does have a global consistency, being internationally recognized, comparability, like I said, in calculation, as well as we were able to optimize budgets through sustainability by convincing the enterprise behind the production in having like real measurements through Green Toolkit. We were able to make it visible and having it ready for the corporate enterprise as well. So it was a benefit for them to get extra money on top. It's normal in the US and Canada, obviously, but not that normal in Germany to get, or Europe, premium vendor budgets on the fly. So we had to convince that's basically Green Toolkit and the approach of international standards in Green Toolkit. Thank you so much for letting us talk and being part of the Sustainable Production Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jose Luis, tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Thank you very much. Motoca is an advocate for electrification of film production transportation. In addition to having zero tailpipe emissions, electric vehicles also reduce air pollution of nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, and fine particles. If you have not seen or heard a Class 6 5-ton heavy-duty electric work truck driving past you, the following video shows you how they reduce noise and air pollution. The faster the industry moves towards electric trucks, the faster productions will realize the air quality benefits of cleaner vehicle fleet for crews, talent, and our neighbors. Other reasons to stop using fuel to transfer propulsion power to transportation is cost and energy effectiveness and circularity. Internal combustion engines are some of the biggest energy wasters. They are at most 25% efficient, meaning that that approximately 75 to 84% of the fuel's original energy is lost. The amount of energy required is far less with an electric vehicle. An electric vehicle sees 87 to 91% of the energy from its battery used to move the car. Losses from 31 to 35% of original energy, it loses 31 to 35% of original energy, but recaptures 22% via regenerative braking. Regarding circularity, you can recycle the materials in the batteries, whereas you cannot recycle burnt fuel. In March 2023, Ignasiak was the first motion picture-specific transportation company to deploy heavy-duty electric work trucks to make movies of the week in Canada. The company installed third-party certifiable telematics on its electric trucks. A Hino 2019 268 Class 6 truck was used for equivalency and comparison to the 2022 Lion Electric Class 6 truck. By the way, the Lion Electric is a Canadian vehicle. And we went charging. From the Vancouver North Shore studios to Kelowna to Vernon. The following information is an excerpt of Ignasiak's commission report on the daily energy usage from March 6 to April 7, where the orange bars correspond to driving sessions, the green bars to idling sessions when the vehicle is on but not moving for an extended time, and the blue bars correspond to charging sessions. The report also included the distance traveled per driving session, and an emissions and cost analysis of equivalency and comparison for Block A, Vancouver to Kelowna, Block B, the film production activities in Kelowna and Vernon, and Block C, Kelowna trip back to Vancouver area. The report presented 3 diesel to electric scenarios or fuel to electric. The common denominator between the scenarios was the round trip 1,254 kilometers. The first scenario was no idling using fast charging premium rates. With idling, also using fast charging premium rates. And with idling, but this time using fleet charging commercial rates in BC. Lastly, fuel is the largest contributor to energy costs for all production budgets and the highest contributor to emissions in Canada. Electric film trucks eliminate fuel usage and cost and significantly reduce CO2 and carbon emissions. The emissions and cost savings analysis are different for every production. If you want to have this type of detailed study done for your production, or if you're a transport coordinator with large investment in ICE trucks, or if you're a motion picture industry scope 3 supplier, and you're wondering if it's time to electrify your fleet, please contact me. Thank you for your attention, and thank you, SPF24 Virtual.
Thank you so much, José Luis. And I'm going to welcome Carmen to the stage.
My name is Tlacol Huputh, and I am an Indigenous costume designer. I had a whole speech ready, but I think I really want to talk about what this particular film I'm on is doing. We are paperless and water bottleless, and the request for purchasing non-new clothing and recycling my kit has significantly dropped the amount of budget I need in my costume department. And the water bottle, I had no idea how bad it was until I spoke with my truck supervisor or my set supervisor as how many water bottles an actor will go through and leave them. And just that alone is a lot. And so what we've done on this movie is purchase just water bottles for our actors, put names on them, and that stopped all the water bottles. So that was really quite amazing, just a simple switch like that. And as I was, as an Indigenous costume designer, I have done films that predate colonization. And it's quite amazing that the clothing that we had as Indigenous survives time. And what I mean by that is my great grandmother was a couch and modeste sweater maker. And I have been gifted a sweater that she made long before I was born, and it's still in pristine condition. So it speaks a lot to clothing that's made from the earth as opposed to the polyester plastic fabrics that are out there now. And the one-hit wonders, I call them, is a shirt that just will only look good for a few washes and then it doesn't look good anymore, as opposed to this couch and sweater that is older than I am and it's still perfect. And I to speak a lot to the Indigenous costume as a costume designer, leather pieces that we have used. And if we move the slide a little bit, sorry, I'm in a coffee shop. I'm currently on set. If you push it forward, I think 2 or 3 slides. Indigenous clothing even continues in archaeological dig finds, like this sketch right here. That's made from the land, from animals, from the deer hide that used all the deer meat, and the bones were used for tools, and the hide was used as clothing. And these pieces still sustain. I think this is why Indigenous have sustained for so long, because the clothing that we wore and created were for the land, for the weather systems. And I think there's a slide forward where Inuit leather seal fur clothing is amazing. Why the people that live up in Arctic weather could live since time immemorial. So I think there's a lot to be talked about in for the costume department as to what happens with the clothing, and little simple shifts like getting water bottles for your actors will stop the mess of water bottles, those Inuit parkas. That's hundreds of years old, some of these clothings. And our t-shirts don't last that long, and we throw them away, and then they're in landfills and they don't disintegrate because they're plastic. This will disintegrate and the earth will take it back. And they last, some of these clothings are passed on for generations, and they'll be 4 to 5 generations old and still work. And I think there's a huge conversation that I think has to happen within the costume department, and how we, as costume designers, use our money and what we do with the clothing after. I've heard of many designers dumping at a thrift store at Value Village and just garbaging it, throwing it away. And I don't know where this can go, but I am really excited to be a part of this conversation of how do we maintain sustainability within the costume department. And I've done this movie for $5,000 because they forced me to do thrift store. They forced me to do these things, which for me is fine. I'm okay with it. But I have proven that I can do a feature film for $5,000 if you do it sustainability wise. So I want to be an advocate for how we move forward and how we can change what happens in this department. And like this photo is this jacket this man is wearing with his war bonnet. That's from the actual moment in the when the red paper and white paper scene happened, and the jacket is still perfect. It's still gorgeous, and the jacket is at least 50 years old. And how many of us can say that about a jacket that we purchased at MEC? So I think I don't know how far this can go, but I know this conversation can go on a lot longer than 5 minutes. So thank you so much for your time. I really want to continue to be an advocate and have these conversations because there's a real deep Indigenous ownership and responsibility that we have. And I know that I want to be a continue and a part of this conversation. And like this shawl right now that Michelle Thrush has on, the yoke and shawl are from the 1930s, and they're still fine and they're still wearable, and these are passed down within generations. So I think that, like I said, that this is an important conversation, and thank you so much. I raise my hands to all of the workers behind this, and thank you for including me in this really, really important conversation.
Thank you so much, Carmen, and thank you for your advocacy. All right, Peter, take it away.
Awesome. Hey, first of all, thank you guys very much for allowing me to be part of this important conversation and discussion about the environment and these education of the masses. I do think it's all of our responsibility as humans and kind of an humanitarian, civic, and environmental responsibility to discuss this. I wanted to begin by highlighting a very obvious and ugly fact. Typically, the greatest negative impact to the environment on a production, the carbon footprint, is most often temporary electricity. You can see the metric tons of waste per production. And again, 50% of that is typically in the temporary power and exhaust related. As seen through many sectors and businesses, utilities, construction, entertainment, and the incorporation of battery energy storage systems and microgrids can actually reduce drastically your carbon emissions or eliminate them completely from that scope. Quite frankly, they're a little bit more reliable than traditional motor-driven power sources, and they are all in the goal of carbon neutrality. With some very basic electrical engineering and calculations prior to productions, you can figure out where to strategically place your battery energy storage systems throughout your production site to either be a major supplementary source of power or eliminate, again, the diesel or fuel-driven systems completely. You can use solely battery systems, or you can make a hybrid system, which is also known as a stage 5 generator. And that is a stage 4 emissions regulation generator paired with a BESS system. What we need to really communicate is it's not just the environmental impact and the carbon footprint, that there's a major cost savings to using these battery systems. You're eliminating a massive amount of equipment on site, like transformers, distribution panels, lots and lots of copper cable, connection points, the labor involved in that, hazardous material drivers, your fuel costs, your fuel mitigation costs, your kind of social cost of noise and pollutants to the neighbors. All those things become eliminated when you start incorporating battery energy storage systems into your productions. This technology exists, it is available, and there's really no reason not to use it besides lack of the knowledge. Anton Bauer has actually gone ahead and created the world's first sodium-based battery system, whereas most battery systems are lithium-based. Sodium is a sustainable, non-toxic, and non-combustible material. Similar to your cell phones, your lithium batteries need to be replaced every 2 to 3 years, whereas the sodium batteries, because of its chemical composure, can last to 12.5-year cycles using it every day from 1 to 100. And this is reducing the amount of waste that's going into what's not the landfill. Super easy to use systems. It fits in non-service elevators. You don't have to run cable up buildings. You have a simplified operation, which can reduce the need for a generator operator on site. And again, completely void of lithium. So your safety concerns about storage, flammability, permitting, noise, heat, or exhaust are completely eliminated. Again, plug it in at the end of the day like your cell phone and get that thing charged up. So, I can go on a little more. I know that time is of essence, but, change is always gradual and change is always resisted by the institution, right? I think it's upon us to make sure that we communicate not only the environmental benefits, but the economic benefits in addition to using battery energy storage systems, which have been successfully used on recent productions for Netflix, Apple TV, Disney, some of the major networks, some of your major drama shows, some stuff I can't mention, the World Series, and a few other things. But you can see on the right side, here's some common applications where you can eliminate diesel completely. And again, cut your major point of emissions and waste by using battery energy storage systems. So I really want to thank everybody, and I really think the time for change is now. There's no reason to do it the old way. The technology exists and it's available. The learning curve, I think, is a lot less than is discussed in the industry. It's just like your phone, plug it in and know how much power you need. So using of the batteries is a big win-win-win. I guess, again, ours is made of sodium versus the rest, but the universal incorporation of this would be greatly beneficial to the environment and cut out a lot of these metric tons of waste that generators create. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you. So let's do one question. Let's see here. Is there a way for international sustainable production service organizations to implement sustainability training mandatory in all film and music studies? Can it be done on a global scale through UNESCO? That is a big question. Does somebody want to tackle that? I think that's a little bit out of scope for some of our speakers here. What I can say, because we do work in training at SPF, so maybe I'll take that. I think that training across the board is something that a lot of different types of organizations are tackling. Certainly, it's in the purview of unions and guilds and trade associations where they're working with their members for knowledge sharing and education. And a number of our partners have some significant capacity building programs that they're developing. We have capacity building programs that we're also developing and that we're taking across Canada, such as the Clean Energy Series. There's also a new certification program that has been spearheaded by GreenSpark Group that is in tandem with USGBC California. So that's US Green Building Council California, and that is the SPEC program, which is a training and certification program. So I think more and more of them are coming online. Maybe this one might be, with the extensive promotion of EVs and sustainable production, where is our industry's discussion around the wholesale damage being inflicted on the people and the land in the Congo, as an example, to source steel, required minerals for batteries, and digital tech? So yeah, that is, it's a big concern. So yeah, Jose Luis, I know you and I have had quite a lot of conversations around the ethics and of batteries. So maybe Jose Luis and maybe Peter, you'd like to tackle that too. So I'll throw it over to you.
I'm happy to jump in here, and that's literally the reason why the Salty Dog was created. People don't realize that the carbon footprint and the unethical practice of lithium mining is absolutely wretched. That is on the front side, let alone on the back side. So to some extent, lithium is a slight greenwash, right? You're seeing a lot of the major tech companies move into hydrogen-based vehicles and also the sodium, but the hydrogen seems to be taking the lead. So wonderful question. Wonderful giant gorilla in the room. And again, there is a limit to how much lithium can be mined, and it's a non-sustainable and non-ethically mined item.
I'm interested though, isn't there a lithium deposit, and I could be wrong about this, that was just discovered in Nevada, where their expectations is that they're going to be addressing the mining of that in a different way, which may rectify some of those ethical issues. But I'm not an expert in that. But Jose Luis, I'm throwing it over to you, sir. Why don't you have a couple of words on that, and then we'll pause it here for now.
Regarding EVs, and if I read the question correctly, I don't think they're relating to lithium, although lithium is part of the problem for sure, but they're relating to the Congo, which means cobalt. So
yes,
it's a huge issue. Both lithium and cobalt are very important minerals in the EV battery space. However, if you follow the recent news, you will see companies, automakers, that are both dropping cobalt and lithium. Now, regards to cobalt and lithium, please be aware that the oil and gas industry has used both of them way before batteries came into place. Cobalt is used extensively by the oil and gas industry. So all of that misinformation and disinformation about the stealing of the land, that's what the oil and gas industry has been doing, and we consider that to be normal. So yes, the EV industry needs to be aware and join organizations and alliances that promote the safeguard health and safety of the workers and respect for the indigenous lands. But please be real. The oil and gas industry has been doing this since it started. It's a false equivalency. And besides, the amount of minerals that the EV industry needs to process and for the transition is in the millions of tons less than what the oil and gas industry is using. But technologies like sodium from Salty Dog are essential. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And I think, as we're working on this transition and changing our processes and our infrastructure, there's going to be all sorts of different things that we need to address along the way. And there will be problems with different things in our supply chain. I don't know if Dr. Elisabeth or if Roman, if you wanted to say a final word on that. I know that you're here to present the toolkit, but if you wanted to hop in here, I'm happy to give you a moment.
I'm happy to comment on the first question. It's a tough one. That's why it takes a little bit to think. But maybe one approach is also through regulation. Like, I think it's great that the industry takes responsibility. That's really important. And here in Europe, where we have new sustainability reporting requirements, me working as a sustainability consultant, I can really see the change that happens in people's mind when they are forced against their will to deal with sustainability. And it's initially annoying because it's, that you have to fulfill regulations, but it really does something with businesses, and they start thinking about these processes, and it can have an impact. And if you create a good policy, it can have a very positive impact. And over to Roman, if you want to add something.
Nothing to add.
Oh, well, I know we could go on, and that's why we do these events, because gathering folks together so that we can share ideas and increase our knowledge together and learn from each other's experiences is the goal. And I'm always surprised and delighted and inspired by all of the experts that we're able to bring into these conversations and have so much to share. Things are moving rapidly. So I'm going to thank you again for your time today and for participating in our Idea Boost. I love these segments. So thank you very, very much, and see you again soon.